Hey, Korra fans. This is Jesse again, and this is the intro to the Battle of the Designers Round 2, the match between Sen-Foong Lim and Jessey Wright. As you saw in the previous video, if you checked it out, we had a deck tech before and after the match, so even though we lost the footage of most of the match, you can still check out that video, see a couple of turns of play, but also get more detail on the exact decks that we're using in the match that's coming up here. As well as our thoughts on why that particular match went so badly for me. Like, so badly. I'll be honest, I'm kind of glad we lost the footage. That said, I thought I lost pretty badly. It's only fair that in our rematch, I get the chance to adjust my deck and maybe do a little better this time. So I've made two very small changes, and those changes are replacing two of my tricks. Otherwise, my deck is the same as described in the previous video, but now I've got Channel Chi, which doesn't look very exciting. I'm sacrificing some utility in order to be able to just get a little more Chi and hopefully get some of my powerful cards more quickly. And the other thing that I put in there is Go, Go, Go. Now, my main strategy revolves around trying to get Rally and Blitz through the Rabaroos, and Go, Go, Go is a sort of compact Rally Blitz effect that lets you spend Chi to play an extra card. And since I intend to be rolling in Chi, I figure this will be a great way. This will be a great way to apply pressure at a critical moment, or maybe save my bacon. So, without further ado, I'm going to switch us over to the match. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Pro Bending Arena Showdown between the designers. Here we have the pleasure of viewing Sen-Foong Lim and Jessey Wright, co-designers of Legend of Korra Pro Bending Arena, facing off with some teams that they had made specifically for this event. On the bottom side of your screen, you will see the orange player. They are using the Wolfbats player board to keep track of their position, and their team consists in a Earthbender and Firebender from the Porcupines, and Tano from the Wolfbats, bringing in the Days to support their high-pressure play. On the blue side of the board, we have Jessey Wright. He's using the Fire Ferret's dashboard to keep track of his Chi and team's Dazed status, but he brings no Fire Ferrets to the field today. Instead, the Water and Firebender on his team come from the Rabaroos, working together to rally and blitz the opposing team with intense pressure and lots of extra plays. And to round out his strategy, he's brought Haka, the Earthbender from the Tigerdillos. Haka is going to, he hopes at least, support the Rabaroos rally and blitz with his veteran skills, bringing to bear a bit of extra Chi generation. Alright, so we see the match is getting started. Sen is playing first. He's using Rock and Roll to throw some Earth tokens and pressure down, get this game off to a quick, heated, or I guess stony beginning. Tano then jawbreaks, stepping to the side, throwing some water tokens on the table, and a card I believe was just discarded for Chi to bring him up to 4 Chi. He picks up a card from his purchase area and advances his market space. Now we are, correction. I didn't quite see that. He picked up 2 cards. He bought both a 2-cost Earth card and Fire card. Although mistakenly flipped an extra card on his market. That play mistake will be corrected later. Alright, so Jessey is responding. He's playing a Fire card to throw some attack down, moves his Firebender out of the threatened space, and then he's going to use Channel Chi right away, following that to increase his Chi from 4 to 5. Getting his plan in motion. Then his waterbender steps over, throws some water down, putting a bunch of tokens down. Really, at this point, his goal is probably just to keep the pressure up on Sen, not let him have the ability to freely discard cards, and have to spend his effort and energy defending attacks so that Jessey has time to build up his power. Alright, he discards a card for Chi. He's thinking a little hard at the moment. Does he buy something? This is a difficult decision because part of his strategy is to get himself into a position where his deck is really thin and really powerful, and that means foregoing early game buys to get faster cycles. And so he does not buy anything. He makes a difficult decision about what card to flip in his market. All right, so now back onto the action. Sen-Foong Lim's turn. Sen is playing a firebending card. And here, what is going on here? There we go. He's making a difficult decision. That's what he was doing. He has played a waterbending card. Tano is going to use River's Edge to, again, move and throwing water into the middle of the board. Hopefully, I guess the thought there is to catch Jessey's waterbender or earthbender in a sidestep. Unless he's got something bigger planned, this isn't much of a threat at the moment. Plus, there is a lot of tokens on his side of the board. But he did buy those 2 cards on the previous turn. Recall, he bought a 2-cost Earth card and a 2-cost Fire card. So this move's going to let his Earthbender move, block 1, and then attack. And that's really exciting that he's got a movement card on his Earthbender. Earthbenders are notoriously stoic and still, and so by including this card in his Earthbender's deck and then buying it early, he's made it that much harder to knock back his Earthbender for Jessey. He's now going to have to take into account the possibility of him moving. All right, and here he uses that card to move his Firebender, and he had used the first part of that to defend against those 2 fire tokens. And he's probably done this because it's generally a good strategy to try and keep your benders spread out and away from the edges of the board. Multiple benders in a space is a liability, because when multiple benders are in the same space as elemental tokens, and those tokens hit, all of the benders in that space will get thrown back together. And so the situation Jessey's in requires him to deal with those tokens, or he's going to take big losses. So Sen used that firebending card not to attack, but to get his team in a position where they are ready to respond to whatever it is that Jessey throws out. So now that it's Jessey's turn, he's going to have to deal with this small set of attacks. He's going to have to be careful not to move into that space with those water tokens, which means Sen is pushing his team ever slowly towards the edge of the board. And again, the edge is not a good position to be in because it's hard to get out of there. There's only one place to go. But of course, while doing so, he's keeping the pressure up. Putting some hold tokens and a bunch of attacks on that Firebender. Now, one of the things that is possibly inspiring this move is in the previous match, Sen's Firebender just destroyed the Rabaroo Tigerdillo combo team with his incredibly powerful signature move. And so Jessey might be feeling a little resentful, putting a bunch of attacks on him and hold tokens as a way to say to Sen, look, that move isn't going to fly this time. I'm taking this guy out, and that's going to be the end of it for you. Of course, Firebenders are highly mobile, which means hold tokens, so the way hold tokens work, for those that don't know, is you put it in a bender's space, and the next time they would use a move icon, instead of moving, the hold token is removed. And so this means that they can't just use a quick move action to get out of a spot that you put a bunch of elemental tokens in. However, Firebenders are very mobile, and so if Sen happens to have 2 Firebending cards in his hand, it's very likely that in playing them, and yes, indeed, that is what's happening here, he'll be able to both clear that hold token and get out of the spot that has all of that elemental attack in it. You see the black cube there that's been placed on the board in the space with Jessey's Water and Earthbender, as well as beside them, those are pressure tokens. Pressure is the Porcupine's unique ability. Pressure tokens make it so that elemental tokens in that space hit twice during the check for hits phase. So normally, 2 elemental tokens would only knock a bender to the back row. It's a bad position, but it's not out. You'd still have a bender in the game. With a pressure token, though, 2 elemental tokens is enough to take a bender straight out because they'll hit twice, making 4 hits. So Sen's put Jessey in a really tough spot. The only thing that could make this worse would be a pile of hold tokens to make it a lose-lose-lose-lose situation, instead of just a lose situation. That also means that if Jessey moves one of those benders into that space with 2 fire and 2 water tokens, they're still going to get knocked back. So it'll be interesting to see what he does to respond to this situation. Now I'm going to take this moment to also provide a quick overview of kind of how the mechanics of this game are working for those who are watching this video and may not know exactly, may not quite be able to follow exactly what's going on. So the goal of this game is to knock the opposing team back off the back of the arena. And the way you do that is you put elemental tokens on the board, and then at the end of your opponent's turn, all those tokens that you placed are going to take effect. If a bender's in the same space as an elemental token, they get knocked back 1 row for every token that is in that space. Now, so Jessey there has just played an Earth card to make an attack into a space where no opponents are. The reason for this is because those elemental tokens with the pressure token were threatening to eliminate his Earthbender, and he got a block effect through that card that he played. It meant that he had to throw an attack somewhere unexciting, but it saved his Earthbender from being eliminated. And here he is using his Waterbender's Weave Through Air trick to move 1 space and deflect an elemental token. This, combined with the block effect that the Earthbender used, has made it possible for Jessey to save both of his benders. This is good news for him, and lucky that he had that trick, because otherwise that would have been a bad situation. Jessey's strategy relies on his Waterbender and his Firebender staying in play. Each of them has very specific jobs. One of them's deck is built to rally, and one is built to blitz. And if he loses one of those benders, that is, his whole combo strategy will unravel. His Earthbender is kind of sacrificable. They're there because they have the ability to get cards that will accelerate his chi gain and allow him to get into those rally and blitz combos a little faster than normal. And so if the Earthbender comes under a lot of pressure and the choice is between losing the Earthbender and losing another bender, Jessey would greatly prefer to lose that Earthbender. Now, what's interesting about Sen's attack on the previous round is Jessey had to play a little bit inefficiently to get out of it. And as a result, there's a lot of attack that he's thrown on the board, but it's not in very great positions. And so Sen's not really under a lot of pressure. He's not really compelled to respond. And so this has opened him up to be able to more effectively counterattack or set the tempo of the next round. You could say that Jessey is on his heels at this point. That pressure play from on the previous round, and now you see more pressure tokens hitting the board. The Porcupines are doing what the Porcupines do well, which is making your opponent have to adapt their strategy and respond to small attacks that you might normally just choose to take little hits on. All right, so getting back to the overview of the mechanics. So you put elemental tokens in your opponent's spaces. At the end of their turn, all of the tokens that you placed hit, and as you can see just there, any tokens that don't hit are then cleared out. So now all that's on the board are the tokens that Sen has placed, and Jessey's turn begins. On your turn, you've got a 3-card hand, and you're just going to play those 3 cards. Every card's got a bunch of icons on it, and you'll do those icons from top to bottom. So the card that Jessey just played there has got a 2-power attack and then a move icon, and it's a fire card, which means it's his Firebender that will be performing this action. So his Firebender is going to attack first. We do those icons in order. He's got enough range to throw it way back there, and then he must move 1 space. When you're moving, you only move left and right. Forward and backward motion only happens because of knockbacks or what are called line advances. And line advances happen whenever all of your opponent's pieces are knocked back from a row. Your whole team will step up to occupy the now vacant row. All right, so Jessey's getting his first rally card into the game. He bought this last turn, and he is playing it now. It's got some nice attacks, moves his Firebender, and importantly, gives him a rally token. So rally is one of the Rabaroo's 2 unique abilities. Rally generates rally tokens. You see the red cube that Jessey put on the Fire Ferret's board there to track his rally. Rally tokens don't do anything by themselves, though. What they require is the other icon that the Rabaroos have access to, which is Blitz. The Blitz effect lets you spend 2 of your rally tokens to draw and use immediately the top card of your deck. So the Rabaroos give up a little bit of tempo in order to have a big, powerful multi-card turn, or at least to play more cards than they normally would be able to. All right, so now we're back to Sen. Jessey threw down some fire, but he also threw down some fire and generated some rally and got himself out of trouble. Sen's able to, remember before he bought that card that lets his Earthbender move, and I'd mentioned that Jessey'd have to take that into account if he really wanted to put that Earthbender in the drink, knock him off the back of the arena, and here we see that working to Sen's benefit. Now, Sen's picking up the referee deck. In the final game, this will actually just be a die with 2 yellow fans and 4 blank sides. This is because Sen is using, or is considering using, one of the tricks that he has access to. So the referee deck is used whenever a bender uses an effect that is technically illegal by the rules of pro bending. And these effects include things like the ability that his Earthbender is equipped with, which allows him to pick up Earth element on the opposing side of the board under his opponent's feet. Normally illegal in pro bending, but sometimes you can get away with it. The way this works is when you use an illegal move, after you perform its effect, you would roll the referee die, or in the case of this game, we'll just draw a card off of our referee deck and then reshuffle the deck. If you get a yellow fan, then that bender gets flagged with a warning. If a bender with a warning is given a yellow fan, they are ejected from the game. This makes some interesting team-building decisions. Do you include illegal moves, which are very effective, but risk losing your benders on your own, sort of giving your opponent the edge by getting too greedy with your cheating? Or do you include just a little cheating and plan to only use it until you get a warning, and then you hold back and say, all right, refs, we'll play fair from now on? And so on the topic of deck building, this is a customizable arena battle game. So you see there's the 3 sets of cards that are face down on the side of the board on both sides. These are the strategy deck areas. Each bender has 4 strategy cards, and Jessey and Sen have, prior to this game, customized the 4 cards that are in those strategy decks for each of those benders. And this is how Jessey, for instance, has focused each of his Rabaroos on one half of the Rabaroos Rally Blitz combo. While he could have blended them and had some options for both Rabaroos to be able to rally and blitz, he instead loaded his decks up so that it is the job of the Firebender to blitz, and only rally effects can be found on his Waterbender, such as the Whirlpool card that he is playing right now. Whirlpool is pretty awesome. It lets you place a pile of water tokens in a space, a hold token, which again, to remind you, negates a move action, and then you get to put 2 water tokens in spaces adjacent to that, and it generates some rally. So Jessey's rally count, you can see over there, is now up to 3. He's going to need to get some blitz icons in there, though, if he's going to actually make use of the rally that the team has generated, which is going to require him to pick one up off of the fire deck. Now, as I was saying, with respect to deck building and team construction, you get to customize those strategy decks. Additionally, though, it's not just the strategy decks that you get to customize. Each team, when you're playing with the advanced rules, has 3 tricks. In tricks that you've seen up to this point, you've seen Jessey use the water trick that allowed his waterbender to step over into another space. Oh, look what just happened there. Jessey's Firebender got knocked back to the back row. This is a really tough position for him. As I said, his Firebender is sort of the key to his strategy, to the plan of using that Rally Blitz move. And knocking him back to the back row is going to make it difficult for that Firebender's attacks to have enough range to actually affect the opposing team. And what you haven't been able to see is that over the course of this game, Jessey has been mostly buying Firebender cards and putting them in his deck. Now, that'll help minimize the negativity of this situation, because those advanced cards that he's purchased and included in his main deck will have better range typically than the starter cards the Firebender comes with. This is still not a situation that he is happy about. So that's a good move for Sen. It's a good position for him to be in. And it's definitely not a time where he wants to let up on the pressure. And of course, he is now considering playing a card that will throw some pressure directly on the board. All right, so while Sen's playing out his turn here, figuring out exactly how he wants to take Jessey down now that he's given himself the leg up, I'll go back and talk about the tricks. So each team gets 3 tricks. Oh, and just in time, Sen is playing a water trick, which is going to allow him to place a hold token on a number of hold tokens on the board. So there are two kinds of tricks in the game. He just played Caught in the Crossfire, which is a water trick that you can use if your waterbender is not isolated, which means they share a space with one of your other benders. And so that let him put a hold token on those benders in the corner there, as well as a hold token on another space. But the reason he has done that is because Sen has also suffered a knockback. So this is a great position for Jessey if he can deal with the bit of threat that Sen's put on the board. Because if he can knock back Sen's Firebender, even just one row, his whole team will step up and then fill that first line on the orange side of the board, which will recover the position of his Firebender, perhaps most importantly. So as I was saying about tricks, there are two kinds of tricks. There are one-use tricks and cheating tricks. Those one-use tricks, like the ones that Jessey's used, Channel Chi and the Waterbender trick that let his Waterbender step out of a space and deflect a token, can only be used once in the entire game. And then they are removed. So Jessey couldn't use that trick again to get that Waterbender out of that spot with the hold token because he's already played it. And there's also cheating tricks. These tricks have a yellow fan symbol on them, and whenever you use those, you just check to see if the ref catches you. But you can use it as much as you have the guts to try and pull off some cheating and pull one over the ref's eyes. Now, fortunately, Jessey's fire, you see what Jessey's just done there, is he has used his Firebender's attack to place two tokens in that space where his forward benders are, which was great, because even though his Firebender is out of range for the most part, you can see he had one attack that had the range to get in there, he's mostly out of range for attacking the opponent. You can still use attacks to defend, and this is one of the important decision points that players are making almost every turn of this game, which is that attacks are very flexible, or most attacks. When you put an attack in a spot that has your opponent's tokens, those tokens counter each other out 1-to-1. And so there were two tokens that Sen had placed in the spot there with the Earth and the Waterbender, and Jessey dropped two fire tokens in there, and so all of Sen's tokens were annihilated, saving his benders. So even when your benders get knocked back, they can still be useful to provide defense from the back lines, protecting their allies who are still better positioned to attack the opposing team. And additionally, though, that decision point is a decision point that you're going to have to make even when you've got benders that are in the front lines. Because, of course, attacks are also defense opportunities. All right, so Jessey laid down a bunch of water tokens, made that Firebender sidestep a little bit, but he's put the pressure on the midline there. Instead of trying to knock back that Firebender and get the line advance, it looks like he's trying just to get a straight elimination on one of those benders. Push them back, get them a little further out of range, and then it'll be a little easier to take that Firebender back because the other benders on his team will be less able to throw attacks on Jessey, relieving some of the pressure and allowing him to focus his attention more on attacking and less on defending. Up to this point, Sen's done a pretty good job of making sure that Jessey's always got some kind of problem to respond to, and that isn't changing now. Jawbreaker. This is one of Tano's nasty advanced cards. He moves one space, puts a token in a space, and two hold tokens. Jawbreaker is super effective at getting your opponent stuck, although it's only got a 1 power attack on it, which means that Sen, generally, with Jawbreaker, you use it to support another bender's attack. So you see, when you're placing elemental tokens in a space, you are only allowed to place a token in a space that doesn't already have matching tokens that you control. So Jawbreaker is a weak water attack, but that big pile of hold tokens is often not the kind of thing that you can just get yourself out of. All right, so Jessey's plan of trying to put pressure on the midline there works. Sen's two benders have both been knocked back one space. Sen's done his best to try and respond in kind. So again, this looks like a bad situation for Sen, but because of the line advance rules, if he can just get both of Jessey's benders in the front line there to step back one row, his whole team will advance, and it doesn't matter that he will regain his full position. So this means that at every moment in the game, there's always the possibility of an intense turnaround. All right, so Jesse's doing the firebender defense trick. Oh no, he's gonna have to think about it here. Uh, so he's going to throw 2 fire tokens in that space and then 2 in that other space to counter the 2 that are threatening his benders. Now, the first fire attack there did not annihilate the water token because that attack had the piercing type. Piercing type attacks, when you place those tokens on the board, they don't annihilate opposing tokens. All right, and then Jessey just cleared Sen's attacks from the board. He did make an error, although it was in Sen's favor. His own fire tokens should not have come off the board there. They should have stayed as a static defense. All right, so it's also worth pointing out that there's only a couple of turns left before we start checking to see if the game runs out of time. Now, there are 2 ways that Legend of Korra Pro Bending Arena can end. It can end in a glorious knockout in which all benders on the opposing team are blasted back off of the back of the arena. But it can also end because the refs call that the match has run out of time. Now, the way that this happens is that when a player at the end of their turn, you see those 3 sets of cards that Sen has in front of him, and Jessey's only got 1 face-down set of cards on his side of the board. When you end your turn, you flip 1 card in your strategy row over. This changes the cards that you have access to add to your main deck, but it also acts as a game timer. If you need to advance your strategy row and you don't have any face-down cards to flip over, you're going to roll the referee die. And if a yellow fan comes up, that's the end of the match, right there in that moment. And then the game victor will go to the team that has the most advanced position, that is, has figures on the opposing territory, and at this point neither player does, or the team that has the most benders. And in this case, again, we're still sitting at a straight tied position. But worry not, folks, because Legend of Korra Pro Bending Arena is an intense game, and there will almost certainly be a major turnaround before this match actually comes to the buzzer. And so, just to sort of finish off that thought, he's taking his turn right now, send through some attacks down, put some pressure on. He's trying to pop that firebender off the back, and if Jessey doesn't have a firebender card in his hand, then he is going to be in trouble. This is not a good position. So his waterbender didn't have the range to make an attack and protect his firebender, and the second attack on that card, you can't quite see it from this angle, also was not going to let him protect his fire. That's right. So he may not have had the ability to save him with his waterbender, but his firebender does have a movement card available to him, and so he can get out of there and save the earthbender. These attacks that Sen have been making have been very small, but Jessey's been quite lucky to have the tools in his hand to actually stop them. Those pressure tokens mean that letting even a little attack through can be a huge loss in terms of knockbacks and board position. And so there's another Whirlpool, probably the MVP card of the game for Jessey at this point. See, his rally is up to 4. I believe there was a blitz at some point as he had 5, but I'm sorry that I missed it in the commentary. But I'm sure there will be another one soon. He's got a Firebender card in his deck with the blitz icon. But really, blitz just means you get to play 4 cards on your turn instead of 3, which is no small thing. All right, so this is lucky for Jessey. So Tano just used Jawbreaker, which does a 3-power attack, and normally Daze is the Wolfbat's unique ability, and it is a very, very frustrating ability to be on the receiving end of. Daze places a Daze token on the bender's portrait on the player board, and the next time that bender plays a card, the first icon on their card is ignored. And what's different about Daze compared to other status tokens is because it goes on the player board, it stays until it takes effect. See, with a hold token or a pressure token, those will clear at the end of your next turn. And so if you can just weather the storm, so to speak, you can get out of a held position. But Daze is guaranteed to do something. But because of Jessey's attack, Sen was forced to use that powerful dazing card to protect his Firebender, because losing position this close to the end of the game would be a losing proposition. So here Jessey's dropping, oh no, this is not good for Sen. Jessey is dropping Whirlpool with a hold on the Firebender, and then his own Firebender is going to move and throw a 2-power attack, protecting his Waterbender a little bit. So unless Sen has a piercing attack, those tokens are going to counter tokens that Sen plays. He spends 2 chi and uses his other trick that Jessey hasn't used yet in order to draw the top card of his deck and play it, and he hits another water card, allowing him to move, guard, move, attack, move, guard, attack, and blitz. There is the blitz icon on the bottom of that card. This is a good timely thing. So Jessey spends 2 rally tokens, draws the top card of his deck and plays it, and he gets his Earthbender's card, moves over, puts 2 power tokens and a hold, putting it on that Firebender. Nowhere for him to go that is safe, and it's going to be hard for him to go anywhere at all. Oh, but Jessey is not done. He still had another card in his hand to play. He's going to play Whirlpool. Again, that MVP card. That card has been doing so much. That move has been doing so much work this whole game for him. I placed Earth tokens there because in the prototype copy, we've run out of our hand-cut water tokens, and so those Earth tokens will just have to do for this moment. It's going to take a lucky shot for Sen to get out of this situation. It's really, really tough. There is huge piles of tokens on all of his benders. There's hold tokens all over the place. This is the power of Rally Blitz. This is maybe the first Blitz effect that Jessey managed to pull off. That, though, combined with the Go, Go, Go card that he used to spend 2 chi and play another card, meant that Jessey just laid down 5 technique cards worth of attack, when normally you're playing 3 cards on your turn. So it doesn't look like Sen's got much to go here. He's examining his hand. I know you can't see it, but I think this is it, folks. I think this is a straight knockout in the fateful hour. On the end of Sen's turn, there's Sen's hand. There it is. Nothing there that's going to save anybody. Every single bender is knocked off, and that is it. Jessey wins this one with a huge blast on possibly what might have been the final turn of the game. And so there it is, folks. Designer versus Designer Showdown, take 2. Jessey wins this one after having made some adjustments to his deck and his tricks in particular. That Rabaroo's combo is particularly powerful. And you might have noticed, it doesn't even need to happen very often in order for it to turn the game around in a hurry. And one thing that you can't see here is that Sen has 2 trick cards that are one-time use that he has not used, which means that somewhere in the game, he probably should have put those down and maybe could have gotten a line advance and knocked Jessey back.